welcome. I'm Jean Pruitt. I'm the president of the Independent Film and Television Alliance, which many of you know is the trade association of independent producers, sales agents, and distributors of all form of filmed entertainment. IFTA is the organization that created and continues to produce the American film market. The AFM over the last 40 odd years has become much, much more. And one of the things we wanted to do today for all of you is to highlight how many opportunities are offered for those of you who are coming either in your capacity as producers, as script writers, as interested students of the film industry, financiers, lawyers, etc. And as part of our changing over the years, we've had to really think hard about how to make sure the AFM was a home for all of you, and that our umbrella offered you the opportunities you needed to further your career and to make the connections that were meaningful. The core activity that's existed since the beginning is the sales market. It's some 100 sales companies, many of whom also produce, many of whom also engage in other aspects of the film industry. But for purposes of the AFM, they are sales companies. They take hotel rooms, they turn them into offices, they move staffs from, up to 70 countries from around the world, and bring into the marketplace whatever current projects they're working on, which in some cases are completed films, and they will screen them in the Santa Monica cinemas that we've made available to them. In other cases, they're just films at very early stages, and companies are looking for partners. They're looking for distributors around the world who ultimately may be interested in the project, but they don't yet have anything to screen. What they have is a poster, a cast, a script, and if they're lucky, they have some money behind them. And those are the people that many of you know when you think about the AFM. Those are the Lionsgates, the A24s. You'll hear from our chairman, Clay Epstein, a little bit, his company Film Mode, the wide range of both small and large companies from many, many different territories. The second group that will be there are what we call the buyers. They're the acquisition executives from around the world. Again, originally, they were primarily very local distributors, country by country. There would be a cadre of buyers coming in from France who are competing to get the exclusive French rights to films that were being promoted at the market. Ditto, Germany, Japan, every country that hoped to get the level of content that was being offered at the AFM are there competing to try to acquire those rights. In recent years, obviously, they have been joined by the streamers, the Netflixes of the world, who, while the French distributor is competing to get French rights, the Netflixes of the world are competing to take everything. And the sales companies are sitting in those offices trying to weigh which at the end of the day is going to be a better deal. That's important because for anyone coming to the AFM, it's important to understand that that piece of the activity that goes on is the lifeblood of the companies engaged in it. They come to the market having made a huge investment to be there and look and with very specific financial goals that need to be realized for them to, first of all, complete the projects, but also in many cases for them to go comfortably into the next year of their lives. So that's one piece. This other pieces that go on are, of course, a full scale of conferences with many of the most well-known people in our industry, speaking both about the future of the industry as they see it, but also doing very specific panels on skill sets and issues that are critical to today's operating businesses. We do our best with all of those panels to make sure they're practical. as producers, directors, distributors, et cetera, who we call attendees, have come into the market, we have really thought long and hard about the need to make sure that every one of you leaves the market with something of value. So the panels range across a wide range of subjects. Almost all of them, because we've discovered this is the key, include an element of, and where do you find money? But in many cases, they impart other lessons. For those of you who are coming to the market because you hope to see one of the sales companies and the acquisition execs, because you have projects, we offer a very large pitch session over the course of the market in which you can compete to be one of the 8 or 10 individuals who pitch to an incredible panel of agents and knowledgeable acquisitions executives who will critique your pick. Within the context of that conference, people will also be chosen from the audience to practice their pitch. There will equally be panels on things like health and safety regulations that the guilds are going to require that you follow in order to cast. And ultimately, almost any topic that we can think of that some group of people, whether US members of the industry, companies from outside the US who are interested in producing in the United States, or any other sort of subset of the group that arrives, we want you to have the contacts and the lessons that we can offer you. I think for most people, the real value of the AFM is networking, that you can surround yourself with several thousand people, all of whom are coming at this industry in the same way you are. They're looking for opportunities, they're looking for guidance. In many cases, they're looking for partners. And when we get a little further into this, we want to talk a bit about what the tools, the very specific individual tools are that we make available at the AFM to help individuals, professionals in the industry to achieve those goals. Another section of the AFM, which again, many people coming in from outside don't recognize or fully appreciate, is we bring on board a group of people that we call Location Expo, which are in most cases the film commissions or the economic development bureaus of states, cities, and countries around the world that are anxious to see film production take place within their borders. Most of them have very attractive financial incentives. Many of them, like the woman I'm about to introduce to you, also offer unbelievably nice venues for you to enjoy as you're working there. But what they also bring is they bring an extraordinary level of knowledge about the practical issues that arise in organizing physical production in a location where you may or may not have a strong network of your own service personnel. You may not have your own crews. You need to really be able to tap into a source of referrals, recommendations, and assistance. And so the other level of networking is not just with other producers, writers, or directors, but it's also with the people like the film commissions who have a level of knowledge and frankly have seen it all, but who will actually let you bend their ear or vice versa to talk about your project, how your project might fit in their location, and what they've seen other people do in your situation, both experienced and novice. So with that, I'm going to turn you over to, you're not even going to believe anybody has this job, the film commissioner and the head of the Honolulu Film Office, a job we all want. And I'd like to introduce Walea Constantino, who has been in this job for a very long time, and I believe really has seen it all, both on the beach and elsewhere. So with that, Walea, if you want to talk about your experience and what you'd like people attending the AFM to know, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Jean, and thank you to IFTA for including me in this discussion and sort of by proxy, the world of film commissions and the resource that we are and the functions that we provide. So as a film commission, as particularly when I'm marketing to the industry and I'm trying to attract production to my area, I look for opportunities where I can be in the right place at the right time. And the AFM to me has always been just that kind of a place because there's an incredible amount of opportunity that I see with the breadth of what you just mentioned is going on. So whether I'm trying to educate myself through some of the panel discussions and also network through the conferences that are there and meet filmmakers that are in their creative stage as they're developing things and they're looking to reach out to someone to figure out, could this particular project work in Hawaii? We try to be there at just the right time. Whether it's being there as deals are getting made and understanding that we could lend something to that deal. Either we could be an answer to a particular solution because we have a great tax credit or because the creative could be serviced very well there. So we try to bridge the gap of everything from location managers to producers to directors to writers to studio executives. And when you have something like the AFM that really takes into account this breadth of it, you know, where many of us have tax credits. The state of Hawaii has a tax credit that I'm always happy to promote. And I have done, you know, for a long time at the AFM. You know, we're branching out to financiers and other entities like that. And as we develop our own local talent, we also look to connect our local talent with the distributors and the buyers that are there. So it's a very interesting opportunity for us. Our mission as film commissions is to be there to facilitate filmmaking. So that's what we're there for, and that's who we want to meet, and that's the kind of services and the give and take that I've seen throughout the AFM. So with that, I will throw it back to you, Jean, and happy to answer any other questions along the way.
Okay, I've unmuted myself. You know, as I mentioned earlier, we're about to turn you over to the very good hands of our IFTA chairman, Clay Epstein, who is the owner and CEO of a company called Film Mode. Clay will talk in significant detail about how to work his side of the AFM. And when I say his side, what I'm really referring to is what many people regard as the Holy Grail. You've got these companies there, you know that they are capable of helping you take a project to completion and ultimately to take it into full distribution and hopefully positive revenue results. But the question is, how do you get the attention of those companies? How do you make the contacts that you want to make when, as I've said earlier, they're so incredibly busy selling the projects that they picked up last year? And as Clay can talk with some greater level of personal experience, what we found over the years is that you cannot, quote, work the AFM if you don't work hard before the AFM. And there's some sort of basic lessons about starting with the fact that the AFM and most other markets have now become appointment markets. People sitting in those rooms, the acquisition execs and the sales agents, are working almost exclusively from appointments that were made before they ever got to Santa Monica. And so to be able to actually have a conversation with them, even if it's only an introduction and setting up a follow-up, generally involves being able to identify very clearly before you get to the AFM or within the first day or two, which companies and which contacts are going to be the most likely for what your project looks like. And usually when we say that, most people say, but how will I know it? The fact is that today, in contrast to years ago, there are a wealth of sources that can be at your fingertips, which we actually provide you and to which you have access is essentially as soon as you've registered for the AFM. One of those things is a company resource that was originally created out of the Cannes Film Market and Film Festival called Sonando. Sonando is now used by the entire international industry as a way of recording which companies are active, what territories they're active in, what, if they're producers, what product they're bringing to the next market, which makes it possible for you to look and say, gee, I don't know, that company sounds really important, but when I look at it, it's all rom-coms. I'm trying to do an action thriller. Maybe that company isn't a match for me. And you move on to the next one to find somebody that would seem to have a sweet spot that looks like your project. It also will tell you who's coming to the AFM, as well as the name of their key executives, including most particularly their acquisitions and development executives. When you register for the AFM, we actually include a year-long subscription to Sonando for your use to begin to do that type of research. You also have access online to the film catalog, which is something we produce. We allow certainly all of our members and all of the AFM sales companies to go on to the film catalog online and register all the projects that they are either bringing to market and have for sale, or projects where frankly, they're just now looking for financing, looking for cast, looking for other people to work with. Again, an incredible source of information that will help guide you to the companies that are most likely for what you're doing. And you will also be registered for My AFM, which is the private networking platform that we've created for use of people coming to the AFM. It really isn't used by the sales companies particularly because they're operating in an environment they know. My AFM is used by people who attend the AFM and are looking for other directors, other producers, other scriptwriters, other people, financiers, other people within the environment with whom they can make informal connections while they're at the AFM and then continue to follow up on afterwards. And as I mentioned, all of these become available upfront. And the lesson out of all of it is more information is good. You can begin to develop a sense of what your project should look like. As I mentioned, and Wailea has mentioned, you can begin to develop a sense of where you could produce it economically and efficiently, and get some idea of how other people are competing in the universe you're trying to be in. So those will be made available to you. And then you will proceed to begin to develop your own list, start to reach out for meetings, start to begin a conversation. And most importantly, and Clay will spend some time on this, begin to think about how to present yourself and how to make your project look as polished and as promising as it's going to need to be to get people's attention. And so with that, I'm going to turn you over to Clay.
Well, thank you, Jean. And thank you, Wailea, for speaking. Pleasure to be here. As Jean said, my name is Clay Epstein. I'm the elected chairman of IFTA, which is a volunteer position, and I'm proud to be serving my community. I've been on the board on and off through the years, but it is my first term as the chairman. And I'm the owner of a company called Film Mode Entertainment, which we started 6 years ago. We're in our 6th year. So Jean, you said this is the 40th AFM, I think, right? So
43rd.
43rd AFM. So I have not been at all 43 AFMs, but I believe my first one was in 1999. And I like to start with this story because I was an assistant in a international sales division that for a company that no longer exists. And when I first went to AFM, I thought I had made it in Hollywood. This was the best moment of my life after film school and telling all of my friends and family back home that I was going to become a huge executive in Hollywood. There I was at AFM in 1999. And what I didn't know going into it was truly how incredible it was going to be and how amazing the people I was meeting and the meetings I was overhearing as an assistant, how crucial that was going to be for my career trajectory. So yes, I can at least speak to the last 20 something AFMs that I've attended. And I think it's a good place to start is, what is a sales agent? Because Jean did touch on what AFM is for the industry, and we'll get into that a little bit more in depth. But the sales agents are who started the AFM 43 years ago as an opportunity to have all of their clients, who are mostly distributors, come to Los Angeles and have a focused week or so of targeted meetings for the sales agents to talk about their films. So sales agent works a little bit like a real estate agent in some manners. It represents films on behalf of producers. Now, as the industry's evolved, sales agents do many different things. Some sales agents produce the films, they own the films, they invest in the films. But in an overall generalization, a sales agent represents the distribution rights to a feature film or television series. And in the independent space, that is usually the only way a film is going to find its audience, is through some sort of independent distribution. Sales agents sometimes work with studios in kind of this parallel crisscross of universes. And in most instances, we work directly with independent distributors all over the world. So I will go and meet with the distributor in the UK, for instance, and they will have an acquisition executive that takes a meeting with my sales team. And we may be representing 4 or 5 new films that the producers of these films either have finished or are going to make or in post-production, usually different stages of production. And we are presenting these films to this acquisition team in hopes that they will acquire the film, and it will be then their responsibility and their business model to release the film in the UK. Now, the manner of release is really up to what's going on in the marketplace, the audience situation there, the distributor's model. That might be in the theaters, it might be on transactional VOD, it might be on pay television, free television. There's a little bit of DVD left in the UK, but not much. So one of the biggest evolutions of AFM in our market is really the distribution streams and how it's changed and affected films and filmmaking. But what's interestingly changed less is how we do our business in terms of that face-to-face interaction and how we negotiate with each other. It was very challenging during COVID to do everything virtually because our business is a face-to-face relationship-based business. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have an action film with Jason Statham and you just happen to throw up on Facebook that you own this movie, you're not going to have every distributor in the world contacting you. But it does mean that if you don't have that movie, it's really hard to get to the distribution, and you're not going to know how to negotiate this deal. So another analogy I use when producers have said to me, Clay, I'm just going to sell the movie myself. I don't need you. I don't need to pay you commissioner fees. And I'll get into that model in a minute. Why should I use Film Mode or a sales agent? And I say to them, at least in America, I can't speak for other countries' legal system, but in America, you can defend yourself in court. You don't need to have an attorney defend you. It's not the law that you have to go with an attorney. So you've seen wackos on television defending themselves in pretty bad criminal cases without a defense attorney. So it's not illegal to defend yourself in the court, but I don't think it's the best decision to make or the best way to go about doing it. And that really is probably the best description. It doesn't mean that you can't try and sell your film, but is that what you do? Is that your expertise? Is that what you do every day? Are you going to know the clients and how to negotiate and how to market and all of the intricacies that go into our business? That's why the sales agents are there, and that's what our core job is, and that's our business model for many years. It has evolved, as I've said, and many of us get into exec producing and co-productions. Every film has a different story on how it's been made. Most of our projects were involved in quite early, but that doesn't mean that producers have made a film and send us a trailer and say, are you going to represent it for us? And we can make a decision based on that. So the core of AFM are sales agents who take an office in the hotel rooms. So we make an investment. We pay to rent this hotel room through AFM. They take the beds out for us, thankfully, so we don't have to do it ourselves. They take most of the furniture out, and we come in with pretty much an empty hotel room, which is a bizarre thing to see if you've never seen one. And we then either rent furniture or go to IKEA or hire a company to design the space for us. So I'm sure most of you have been to some sort of a trade show, whether it's an auto show or Comic-Con or maybe different industries, and people build booths in a convention center. The Lowe's Hotel kind of acts as our convention center, and each hotel room is our quote unquote booth that we have to kind of convert into a very comfortable, professional space for us to have meetings with our clients. So that is, in a nutshell, what a sales agent is. Now, who attends the AFM in addition to sales agents and distributors? Again, those are the core attendees. We have this wonderful producers network, which is all of you, and we do hope that you attend. You have to remember, this is the only event in the world that is devoted to independent filmmakers, distributors, and sales agents. Every other event, such as the Cannes Film Festival, which is incredible, and Berlinale and Venice and Toronto, everything that they're doing is the festival, and usually for local, depending on their city or culture. That's their core initiative, and everything else is a peripheral add-on. So when I go to Toronto, which I was there last week, the industry meetings and office it's not an afterthought, but it's an add-on. It's not their core interest, right? We take a badge, an industry badge, but there's no formal market in Toronto. In Cannes, there is a formal market, but it is still almost the underdog to the core festival that's going on, same as in Berlin. So AFM is the only event that the core initiative is the commerce of independent films, which is incredible. And that's why you have to be here. There is no other event that is going to give you the opportunity. If you want to be in the film industry, or if you are in the film industry, if you are an independent filmmaker, want to be an independent filmmaker, this is the event. That's why it takes place in Los Angeles, which is the core city for filmmaking. And that's why we have it. And that's why IFTA hosts it, because we are the only trade organization in the world that is consisting of independent producers, distributors, and sales agents. This is your market. This is our market. And that's what I keep saying to the community. And that's why it's so important. So in addition to sales agents and distributors, producers attend AFM, filmmakers attend AFM, talent. I've had actors, famous actors walk in my office through the years, and you're kind of like, oh, and it's some TV actor that has a movie he wants to direct or had directed or has written. So you have a lot of the peripheral community come to AFM, which is exciting and makes it a very interesting and exciting environment to be in. But the core group of categories would be a sales agent, distributor, and producers. Those are kind of the three core groups. With that, you have the filmmakers and everyone else. Certainly all of you that is listening to this, whether you've registered or not, you're already taking the first step in taking this seriously. So we appreciate the time. This is a two-way street. It's a very symbiotic two-way street, because we need wonderful independent films and filmmakers, and everyone on this call needs to connect with the professionals that can help get their films made and into distribution. I kind of touched on what we do at AFM. The day-to-day core business at AFM is us going to the office early in the morning with our team. We have scheduled meetings from usually 9 a.m. straight through to 6. We have a lunch meeting, we have a dinner meeting, we have drinks meetings, we have a party to go to. Yes, it sounds maybe glamorous the way I pitch it, because I am a salesperson, and I'm not saying it's not fun, but it is work. So by the end of these 4 or 5 days, I can barely hear my own voice. I can't stand my own voice by the end of these 5 days. It's the schmooze fest to end all schmooze fests. But that's why we're in this business, because you do have to enjoy it. It's a lot of work, but we are very, very lucky, and I'm very grateful to found success in this industry. In addition to the meetings in our office, the buying and selling and showing trailers and presenting scripts and pitching the projects to our buyers and discussing the marketplace, the first question I ask a client is not how much are you going to pay for this movie. The first question I ask is, how was business for you? What is working for you? And how was the industry and distribution in your country? That is a way that I can get educated so I can strategically find projects to work on with them. These are, in many instances, clients I've known for 15, 20 years. We're partners. We want to continue doing business together. In addition to that, many of the events that you would be able to attend are wonderful seminars and panels and networking opportunities. I do host a panel every year. I've been doing, Gene, I can't remember now, but at least 10 years. I mean, I did,
Yeah.
right? I started at L'Amerigo with a microphone and walking around the audience. And it's evolved into an incredible panel. Usually 800 people are in there, and we always have unbelievable guests. And the idea is to have 2 sales agents and 2 producers. So I moderate, but I'm also one of the sales agents. And then we have another sales agent and 2, most of the time, very successful producers of films you all have heard of, talking about what it is to work with a sales agent, and the sales agent talking about what it is to work with a producer. And usually we get unbelievable feedback, how helpful it is, because you're getting such a real world idea and the knowledge to truly get into this industry and business. So in addition to the buying and selling, we have this incredible area with the producers networking events that certainly is so crucial for you all to attend. There are parties, there are lunches, there are banks that are involved in our industry that loan money for productions. Now, before you get too excited, they usually require, experienced, credible producers that do sign the loan. You have to have collateral, but there are banks that specialize in production funding. And those banks attend the AFM, and they usually host a cocktail or some sort of presentation. They take meetings. And there are the wonderful location Expo. There are labs and post-production services that take booths as well. So it's more than just the producers and sellers. And it really is, it's the independent industry that is there.
Clay,
Yes.
now that you've said all of the glorious stuff,
Yes.
would you talk about the sobering part? Like you're
Well,
an attendee at the AFM and you
yeah,
walk
I
in
mean,
someone's office and they growl at you?
Sure. And I've had some really tough experiences where I've been in the middle of a really important negotiation and an unknown random person just walks in my office and interrupts my whole meeting and expects me to just take his one-page pitch. That's not the way to attend AFM, right? The sellers and distributors spend a lot of time preparing for it. I'm preparing for AFM now, right? I'm starting to schedule meetings and prepare my materials and my lineup and how the office is going to look. And this is a professional environment. This is not the Comic-Con opened up to the public. That's not that environment. This is a professional industry environment. Therefore, you have to be professional. So preparation is key. Preparing your materials and your pitches. And if you have a film, having a trailer ready and reaching out to distributors or sales agents prior to AFM. We don't generally have an enormous amount of time to take unsolicited pitches during AFM because we come with a schedule for those 5 days. Some companies have acquisition executives there and many don't. So when we have producers randomly coming unsolicited to the front of the office, asking for a meeting, most instances it will be, I'm sorry, there's no acquisitions exec here, but please leave your materials. Now I go through those materials. I certainly go through them, but I have to be honest, if they're not professionally created, or it's not a film or a project that is commercially driven, right? Then we're not going to take it seriously. So how do you know what's commercially driven? You come to AFM and you go to those producer network seminars. You're doing the right thing to take the next step. And it may not be this year. Maybe this year is the education part. This is educating yourself. And next year, you're going to be in an ideal scenario to come again and then have meetings because you will have invested that time and energy. if you're serious in being in this industry, right? This is a professional environment that we invite you to come, and we invite you to be as professional as we are. So do your homework, as Jean said, prepare materials, prepare who you want to meet with, look for companies through Sonando and Film Catalog that you think would be a fit. Try and connect with them prior. That's going to be the best. And I'm going to end on a great story where I was at an AFM. I had been sent a project before. I didn't have a whole lot of time to look at it, but I did remember the title, and I did my panel about sales agents and producers. And a young woman came up to me and said, Clay, my name is, I'm not going to say your name, but she introduced herself, and she said, I had sent you a project, and I was hoping I can come by your office later to take a look, to discuss it. And she had made a trailer, and I'd watched the trailer, and I said, I'm going to tell my assistant to book a meeting with you. So we did. She came in. She was incredibly professional. She had all her materials laid out. She said, I'm going to be sending you a finished film in a week or two. She showed me the trailer again. She had it on her iPad, and I ended up acquiring that film. And we got it distributed throughout the world. We got it released in the US. It's up on Tubi now. Everyone can see it. So I love telling this success story because this was not someone who had been in the business before. She was a film student graduate that wanted to become a filmmaker, and now she is. So it can happen, and it does happen. So we invite you to ask questions. We have a few minutes left. I think it's also, I wanted just to throw out there, if you do come to AFM, let people know, post on social media you're coming, that you're in, they should be in as well. This is where it's all going to happen. So we're excited to see everyone in person again after these virtual years that we had to go through.
Thank you, Clay. We have so many questions. I'm just going to dive right in. There's quite a few actually that focus on documentaries. So
Sure.
I only do documentaries. Am I at a disadvantage? Does AFM lean more towards narratives, or are there opportunities for documentaries?
If there was ever a time for a documentary, it's now. But I think what's important is you still have to be commercial. It's all about the commerciality of a film. That doesn't mean it has to be an action film with Jason Statham. I always use him as an example. But commerciality means, is there a wide audience? Is there a wide enough audience? Not everything on Netflix is an indication of, is there a wide audience? Because their business model is very different. It's very difficult to gauge or to equate what it's worth, because it's not a transactional model. Netflix decides they want your movie, that's the model. But how do you consider or determine if they're going to want your film? So yes, documentaries have an opportunity. They still need to have a commerciality to them and have a wide audience. But yes, they are definitely, you're not limiting yourself if you come to AFM with a documentary.
Great. And a lot of people are asking about the ability to meet with sales agents and buyers if they haven't seen your film yet. So Clay, can you speak a little bit to how
Sure.
filmmakers approach them, and if they haven't seen the film yet, is there an option for them to take a meeting?
I'm not going to say that a buyer has never met with an unknown independent filmmaker because they had set up an email or met in the lobby of a bar. It happens. It's not common, and it's not what the buyers are coming to Santa Monica for, right? The buyers are getting most of their films from sales agents or producers that they have previous relationships with, that they career producers, I guess is the best way to refer to them as. And so again, it's doing that homework. It's reaching out to the sales agents prior to AFM that here's a trailer or a promo, or here's what I'm going to do. Here's the cast I have. I will say that in the marketplace today, worldwide, everyone wants commercial movies with known cast. So if you submit a black and white drama with unknowns and yourself as the lead, and you've never made a movie before, it's probably going to be challenging to get that positive response you want. But I still encourage you to come to AFM so you know that for next time. You learn what to make. Filmmakers that have success, despite the articles and the trades that they love to write as if it was just success fell from the sky. Everybody told the producer and filmmaker no, but they resisted and went forward, and they ended up in Sundance and had a huge success. That's not the truth, the reality. That's why the trades write about it. They love those articles. They love that narrative sells, but that's not the narrative of reality. The reality is people put in the work and the study and the research and the investment of time and effort.
Well, one point I'll add, because this comes up a lot with people who sort of don't understand why a sales agent or whatever. One of the big reasons that distributors like to work through sales agents or through known companies is, as the marketplace and distribution has gotten more complicated, the effort and the energy that it takes to actually comply with the distributor's requirements and to give them what they need in delivery items to actually perform on the contract has become much, much more difficult. So they look at what may be a very talented producer and think, boy, you can deliver the film, but you can't actually get me my materials.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, in part because you're not interested in that. That's
yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah,
and so they protect themselves largely by
it's a
working
very
with
good
the
point.
sales
That's a
who
service.
can handle that piece.
Yeah, it's a service that sales agents really, it's the expertise of a sales agent is not only they know the right buyers, they know how to negotiate on your behalf, they know the strategies and the idiosyncrasies of distribution. But you're right, to deliver a film to a distributor is excruciating today. When we say delivery, we mean actually sending not just the feature physical elements or the ProRes file with its audio tracks, but also a whole slew of legal documentation. So yes, that is certainly something that you need a good sales agent to help walk you through that. Yeah.
And a distributor looks at that as, it is going to cost me so much to fill in the blank.
Yeah, they won't do it
with somebody other than
right.
someone who has the professional back office.
They won't do it.
They
Yeah.
just won't
And
do it.
you as a producer, again, coming to AFM, you're going to educate yourself. But when you're shooting the film, you need to make sure your chain of title is correct and all the contracts with everyone down to the craft services has been paid, and there's verification of payment. And again, we're not making student films. This is the real industry that you're getting yourself into, which is great. But once again, I go back to the professional environment. You have to be a professional.
Terrific. The next question is for Walea. Is there a place that we can find the way to contact film commissions, and when having initial conversations with them, what materials and what information should we provide to them?
Sure, no problem. Most film commissions are a part of the Association of Film Commissioners International, the AFCI, and you can go to afci.org and find film commissions from around the world. I would recommend reaching out to a film commission as early as you can, because I have helped filmmakers in the story phase as they're developing the story, highlighting different people that they can talk to, pointing out different cultural aspects or unique things that lend themselves to the story. When we were working with Alexander Payne on The Descendants, he came out 8 months before physical production would start to be able to get into all of that. There's opportunity to work with people as you're in the scouting phase. Maybe you have a rough outline of a story and you're just trying to get ideas of what to look for. And at that point, the film commission can also be very creative in their thinking about what works for you or what doesn't work for you. We were working with the independent producer who is trying to put together the Angelina Jolie movie, Unbroken. And they weren't quite sure if 1930s California could be found in Honolulu. And so we work with them at that early stage to be able to do that. And then, of course, when you're really ready to do the physical production and connecting with all the resources that are available, and understanding, are we really busy? Is it better for an independent film to come during a hiatus because we're so busy that you're not going to have the crew that you need to make it more cost effective? Or Some tax incentives get tapped out. Ours doesn't have that, but being able to connect with them to understand, is there a cycle when you have to apply for the money? So I would just say start a dialogue, because film commissions want you to be there. They want you to be in their area. And the reason they exist is to help.
Terrific. Thank you, Alea. Clay, at least 45 questions asking what materials should people prepare and what would get your attention? How do they prepare properly?
Yeah, great questions. I'm glad everyone listened to what I was saying. Usually a trailer or promo. So if the film is in production or in post or finished, you would cut together a trailer or promo. The difference is a promo may not be completely finished footage or cleared music, something that would not be put online publicly, but you could show on your iPad or send a private link. And a trailer is a bit more finished. But with that, I would say don't do it yourself. It would be worse to show a promo that looks like you cut it yourself on your laptop, or an editor who doesn't know how to cut the promo. That's even worse. So hire a professional trailer editor. Doesn't mean it has to be an expensive trailer house. I'm sure if you go online, Film Independent is a great resource. I think LA 411 has it used to be a big thick book. I believe there's a website more than one where you can find IMDb. Even you can find editors on IMDb. It's online to try and search for trailer editors. I'm sure we could, you can find out a few trailer editors, but hire a professional trailer editor to cut your promo. It will do wonders. It will be between not getting an answer to getting a meeting. That's a huge difference. No response to a meeting is a big difference. And artwork, again, I wouldn't do artwork on your Photoshop yourself, because again, that's even worse when we get a poster that's clearly done by someone's kid taking a Photoshop class. That's detrimental. It needs to look professional, but nothing is more useful than a really professionally put together promo or trailer. That's the number one asset that we're all looking for, because we get to see production quality, we get to see who's in it, we get to know the genre, we get to see the ability of the filmmakers to put something together. That's the most important and valuable asset that you can have as a promo or trailer, professionally cut promo or trailer.
We
Terrific.
haven't started production yet. What would you bring for a leave behind?
Well, we've done kind of previs promos before. They're a bit of an art form. Some are better than others because you're kind of creating an asset out of nothing, but it normally feels like an EPK, almost like an electronic press kit, or when you've seen those behind the scenes interviews in the movie theater on HBO, when they're going to talking about a film that's coming out, that you see the director talk and the actor talk about his role, and then it shows a few clips. Well, you could do something similar to that, and the clips could be movies that you want your film to be like. Or if you have directed or produced something before, you could say, well, when we were producing such and such film, I go to AFM movie and we had the tone of, the comedy, and you could cut to a clip of your film that you've done before as you're talking. So again, it has to look good and be polished, but we call it kind of a teaser or a previs or an EPK or presentation. That's also a good asset to have, because it also gives us a very clear idea of your ability to put something together and what you want to do. And so that's all a link or, but a leave behind a nicely designed pamphlet or brochure. Anything that feels homemade is going to present the wrong sensibility of your film. If it looks and feels homemade, we're going to think someone's trying to make a home movie, and that's not the business we're in, right? So everything it's the first impressions, right? And we're in the movie business. So unfortunately, that saying you don't judge a book by its cover doesn't necessarily translate to the movie business, because we're in the business of selling the cover. So I would do a polished pamphlet or brochure. We've had stuff printed at Kinko's before on nice paper. You don't have to get 1,000 printed at a print shop, but have it properly designed, have it look nice, have it be presented well, no typos, more visuals than text. I'll give you one tip to the 381 people on this Zoom. There's a website called Fiverr. And Fiverr is a wonderful resource to hire graphic artists and editors for a really fair price, right? And you can try sometimes more than one. Sometimes it's so inexpensive, you can have 2 or 3 people designing something and use the best one because it's so affordable.
The other thing that I would suggest, going back to Wylia's point, is by and large, one of the things film commissions offer is the equivalent of sort of LA 411. They tend to
That's
have
great.
incredible resources lists of people who provide critical skills for filmmakers coming into the territory. So if you're not in LA, don't overlook the fact that, as she said, your local film commission can begin to help you from the word go and really start to point you toward other professionals that can help produce these kinds of materials.
Thank you, Jean. We have so many questions still coming in, so you all just let me know when you want to stop. But a couple of people are asking about the opportunities for foreign language films at AFM. If Claire or Jean wants to take that.
It's probably not. The short answer is yes, you're going to find foreign language films at AFM. You're probably not going to find a lot of foreign language films at AFM, which you will. Maybe not as many as in Berlin or Cannes. But with that, it still comes down to the commerciality of it, right? So the foreign films that seem to have a chance in the marketplace are probably more genre driven, a horror or an action film that it's going to translate visually worldwide. You're not going to need to have an ability of the language. It's not right. Comedy is going to be very difficult because comedy is usually cultural or within the language. But when you get into horror and into action, and if you look at some successful foreign language films in the past, this is putting the French language, because that's an industry unto itself, kind of off to the side. And Korean film, the Korean industry seems to be really booming right now as well. But yes, certainly an opportunity, but it has to be compelling. There has to be a reason that the industry is going to say, yes, there's an audience for this, despite the fact that it's in a foreign language. We're looking at a film that's in Arabic right now, because we were watching this film. We said, this filmmaker is unbelievable. And they paid a Hollywood actor to be in it for like 10 minutes, which was a great idea. It was an excellent idea to have him in it. Someone everyone knows they can put on the poster. So he kind of acts as an ambassador, right? But if the film wasn't as incredibly made as it is, creative and wonderfully done, and has genre-driven elements to it, we wouldn't even be considering an Arabic film. They work in the Middle East, certainly, but outside it's maybe a bit limiting. But we think this film is just incredible.
I mean, having said that, I think we've all noticed over the last couple of years that even in the United States, there's been a growing acceptance of subtitles, a growing acceptance of foreign language and foreign made films and TV programming. And we certainly do see, like Unifrance, the big industry organization in France, will bring 15, 16, 17 companies and producers with them who are selling films. In some cases, they may have one they made in the English language, but they also have a full repertoire of the original product that they regard as their bread and butter. The same thing will be true there'll be a German umbrella stand with numerous German companies, but the Korean companies, as Clea said, are very much in evidence. Japan is beginning to come back. And so you're seeing a lot more bravery, if you will, about companies beginning to understand in a lot of those countries, fully understanding the export market and actually now pushing forward product that meet the commerciality standards.
Right.
But they happen to be in another language. So it's an interesting time. And I think the answer is there aren't any rules except
Good
know who
movies.
yeah, good movies.
Yeah,
Know
entertaining.
what the audience is that you're trying
Right.
to go after.
I mean, I would, one bit of advice I would say is to manage your expectations. So come with an ambitious goal, but a realistically achievable goal, right? So to have a goal saying, I want to leave having sold my script. I don't know how realistic that is. Scripts don't get sold even in Hollywood very, very often because everyone has their own scripts they're developing. So if you went to a sales agent or a producer and say, buy my script, he's going to say, I got my own 15 I'm trying to get made. Why should I go buy yours and start it, So you have to think about the realities of that, but certainly give yourself goals, targets and goals. I would see this as an opportunity to educate yourself, right? You have to educate yourself so you're well-versed in the industry. And within that, you're going to naturally network with other individuals that are going through the same seminars you are. You'll be in Santa Monica. You will inevitably meet producers and maybe and sales agents just because you're going to be in Santa Monica and around the Lowe's. So that will naturally and organically happen. And you build on those networks. In 1999, the first time I went to AFM with the company, I didn't sell anything. I was educating myself through the years to build a network base. And I took the time and I invested the time and the energy in networking and traveling to events around the world to finally have become part of a network and have a base of colleagues and clients that I could do business with. So the expectation that's going to happen overnight, I think that might be, it doesn't mean it never happens, but it's not an expectation that I think is worth all of your energy. I think your energy should be put in approaching this in a professional manner and in a manner of educating yourself.
Thank you. Obviously, a lot of producers in varied states of production here. And Clay, everyone is wondering, when is the right time to get a sales agent? Is it when you're in script form? Is it when you're in production? If you have a 95% done film, we have sort of all types of things happening here.
Right. It depends on the film, really. If a seasoned producer who is proven and is a career producer, they're going to get a sales agent quite early. And there are producers that send us a script. This is my next film I'm going to make. We'll get on early because we know they have a clear path to production because they will have proven that they can do that. But if it's an unproven producer that sends us a script, we're not going to jump on board early because we don't see the incentive and the reason to do so, because that may never get made. And it may just be everyone spinning wheels, or they may need really a physical producer to help them. And that's not what we do. So I think it depends on the project. If it's a first-time filmmaker that's asking these questions, or a filmmaker that's never had a film distributed before, then probably they need to get a little bit further along. If they have a known actor or a known director attached, and they have a script and they have some money, then that would be a fine time to go out to sales agents. If they don't have those elements, then they probably need to get into production. And if they have enough footage to cut together a great promo, then that would be a good time to go out to sales agents. And if all of those things aren't happening, then they need to wait till they have a finished film, and then they can go out to sales agents then.
Thank you. The next question that is coming through is a lot of people asking specifically about genres. Clay or Jean, do you want to talk a little bit more about how to identify the companies that have films in a genre similar to your own?
It's become less common for sales agents to stick to a genre as it used to. That used to be when I first got into the business. Oh, that company did prestige, and that company did comedy, and that company did action, and that company did. We're all pretty much chasing commercial movies that have an audience, right? And that's why you'll see you'll see kind of a mix of everything everywhere probably. So I think it's the commerciality and the level of audience reach. That's truly what's important. Certainly, there are some sales agents that won't do documentaries or don't do any drama or don't do, I think some may be more domestic oriented. Some sales agents may be more apt to taking on films that are very US centric. We kind of are on the fence because we want to make sure a film can travel worldwide. But I think what's most important is, does the sales agent take on films in the space that you do? And the space is budget level, cast level, director level. It's less about genre, probably more about budget level and cast level. So there are sales agents that are not going to touch any film without really known, BA level cast, or they're really director driven. They're only doing famous directors are going to be going to Cannes and Sundance and Berlin every year. That does exist. So then it's looking for sales agents that will work with first time directors, have films with very low soft cast, we say cast isn't that well known, or budgets that are a little bit lower. That's probably more significant to what you're looking at than genre per se.
Although I would pull the horror group out of that. I think when you look at a company's lineup, the horror group is fairly distinct. And some of that I think is because horror is notoriously hard to sell in some territories. So companies that have developed that expertise and can actually place those films bring a specialized talent to the marketplace. But in terms of how do you know those answers, step one really is look at these source materials and look at what their lineups look like.
Yeah.
And you can fairly quickly see, frankly, what budget cast level they're operating at. You can also frequently see how many films a year they're putting into the marketplace, which will give you an idea of how they invest in films and how they move things forward. And then it really is research, either through those sources, through IMDb, or through the trades, where you start to seriously look at the last couple of years of titles and get a handle on what those projects were and how they were handled. I mean, ultimately, were they sold to all territories? You can tell that through IMDb. In what medium, in what sort of time frame. And the more you can figure that out, the better, concentrating, if you can, on the things that are similar, seem to be similar to what you're doing. The only thing that becomes a little disorienting is, of course, we do have a reasonable number of companies out there that currently are specializing in the Hallmark Lifetime genres. And so it can be misleading because they may have 25 films a year, all of which are about Amish families who happen to be located in the Ozarks or what have you, because that's what Hallmark wanted, and French television and Spanish television eats that stuff up. But then if you look a little further, you realize that that's only one arm of what they're doing, and there is different, some different product off to the side. But it really all just keeps coming down to try to identify a certain number of companies that aren't on their face different from what you're doing, whether it's because they're too big, too action, or too niche for what you're trying to produce, and then just hone in on them. Just do as much research as you can. And it's really not impossible these days, between the sources we've laid out and between the internet and IMDb, et cetera. You can dig pretty far down into understanding how a project was put together. And certainly that's the best way to approach it. And the other thing is, people surrounding you at the AFM will in many cases have had experience. Yeah. They will actually say, I pitched to so-and-so, it didn't work for this reason. I was successful at doing this Hallmark thing, but that's not really where I want to spend my life, but here's what you need to know about it. I mean, that's the other advantage, is you're going to be surrounded by other people that are trying to do the same thing you are. And generally pretty happy about sharing is what I think we found in the industry overall.
Wonderful, thank you. The next question, is everybody okay to go for a little bit longer? Okay, the next question.
I'm scared though, Jennifer, because the number of questions keeps going up.
I know.
Notwithstanding how many we answer.
I'm trying to lump them. There's a lot of the same questions, so I'm lumping them together. But the next one is specifically for Walea. Someone is wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the incentives that are offered in Honolulu right now, and how a film can take advantage of those.
Sure, thank you very much for the question. We just expanded our credit starting in January of 2023. It's going to be 22% rebate in Honolulu, and it's going to be 27% on the neighbor islands. And it's on your total Hawaii spend. So it covers everything from scout to post. I think there was an element in there about how that applies to foreign production. And you do need to file with the tax department. So some foreign entities feel that it's advantageous to partner with a local production services company that's familiar and has a relationship with doing those kinds of things. Sometimes you can work with a local production entity that also can help you cash flow it, because they will then ask for the tax credit on the back end through their company, but they'll front the money. So there's a myriad of things to be done. Different film commissions or countries that offer incentives, and certainly I know Clay knows this, and Jean, jump in. It's a very good question to ask. What are the limitations within what you can do, particularly if you're doing co-production deals? So research that quite specifically, and you can usually find the information directly from the governmental entity that is managing whatever credit it is you're looking for. For Hawaii, the website is filmoffice.hawaii.gov, and you can surf to where it talks specifically about tax credits, and then there's additional contact information for people who specifically deal with that. But generically speaking, you want to research the detail of things, because different areas will have different things that applies. Some people do above the line, some people only do below the line, some people do goods and services. For Hawaii, it is above the line and below the line, resident and non-resident. So it's a smaller percentage, but it's very broadly applied. And you want to look at the detail of that when you're trying to figure that out, so that you can offer that as you're in discussions with the sales agents and the distributors and everybody else. They understand one of the financing pieces of the financial pieces that you have that will maybe help move things forward.
And I'd also suggest for people looking for incentives that you do look at the website that Entertainment Partners has created. They have a specific tax incentive, tax credit section that attempts to summarize for you everything that's offered around the world. But Wailea is correct that at the end of the day, you don't rely on anybody's summary. You go directly to source or get an expert who can tell you what the quirks are. I mean, there's some very generous incentives where they run out of money. You think you've got it, you think you're there, that government ran out of money and you don't have it. There are others that will actually refund the money as opposed to making you take it as a credit against your taxes. There's a lot of ins and outs as to how you're ultimately going to monetize and make use of the credit. So the Entertainment Partners site is fabulous for getting you in the ballpark, but then you have to take it to the next level of detail if you're actually planning on using that as part of your financing plan.
I wanted to clarify, that's a really good point, Jean. Sorry, Clay.
That's okay.
Hawaii's is a non-refundable, so you don't have to have a tax liability to be able to claim it. There are others that are transferable and things. So again, understanding the detail of that and what that means to you is super important.
I was just going to add, going back to the previous question about what sales agents kind of the types of films they represent. I think it's a good idea to probably get on the sales agents' Instagram and Facebook pages. I mean, not just because I'm promoting Film Modes, but of course, get on Film Modes, Instagram and Facebook pages. But all of our sales agents have social media, and what better way to know what they're working on is to get the posts, because not only the distributors, but the sales agents as well will post information about the films they're working on and the people they're working with. So it's a wonderful way, again, to get into the industry. That's a very easy, free entry into the doors of the companies you want to be working with, if you haven't done so already, of course. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and hope to see you at AFM. And best of luck.
Clay. Thanks,
Bye.
Monica.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I want to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.